Hey everyone, welcome back to the Kirkpatrick Podcast. It is your girl Vanessa, and I am so excited. It is female power today. We're going to be talking all about, well, obviously how females take over the Kirkpatrick model, but also how the Kirkpatrick model has really helped to change folks, not just in their work, but also in their careers and the opportunities that they choose and the things that have, inspired around them. And I am so excited to bring you all this amazing group of wonderful ladies. We've worked with them for many, many years. They've achieved their bronze certification, their silver, and I'm not saying that they will, but they may be up for their gold after this podcast release, which we're very excited about. So first, I want to introduce y'all to Deana Brown. Deana began her training career informally, helping her colleagues before moving into an official training role. Isn't that kind of how we all get into training, right? Her curiosity about measuring impact led her to complete the Kirkpatrick bronze and silver certifications. She applied what she learned to strengthen her structured on-the-job training, SOJT program, embedding levels 1 through 3 evaluation and gathering compelling data. This data has driven stakeholder buy-in, the holy grail, and expanded the program across departments. Today, Deana's work is influencing performance culture across her organization. We also have Veronica Soria. Ronnie was first introduced to the Kirkpatrick model during her time with the United States Marine Corps, where she saw levels 1 through 3 used, but under-leveraged. I've never seen that before. Her perspective shifted in 2015 when a federal agency emphasized training evaluation as a strategic imperative. She witnessed a growing desire amongst learning professionals to show the value of their work through meaningful evaluation. Although stakeholder buy-in is still evolving, Ronnie is energized by the momentum towards change and the opportunity to elevate learning outcomes. And if there's anyone that is a spitfire and has energy, it is certainly Ronnie for me. And then we've got Genevieve Nystrom. Genevieve's career spans nonprofits, academia, and government, but her passion for impactful learning has remained constant. It wasn't until 2022 that she had a breakthrough, realizing that without proving training leads to real-world behavior change, its value is incomplete. The Kirkpatrick model transformed her approach and helped her champion evaluation as a core part of program success. Now a program manager, Jen inspires others to embrace evaluation and experience their own aha moments in learning. Ladies, hi, how are you? Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
So you all have worked together in various capacities. Can you kick us off with sharing a little bit more about how this group came to be and came together?
Sure, I can start off. So as you mentioned, we've been working together for several years, but I wanted to go for my silver. I think it was just 2024, so summer 2024. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to use for my program initiative. And I reached out to these two lovely ladies, Ronnie and Deana, because I have worked with them, and with Ronnie's past experience and history with the workplace and also with Kirkpatrick, I thought that her historical knowledge was going to be invaluable. And then, of course, Deana's SOJT experience was something that I really wanted to bring into the project that I was working on, or our initiative. So that's a little bit about why or how we kind of came together and pushed forward with implementing our evaluation.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Anything else anyone wants to add to kind of that?
Yeah, I'd like to add something. We were able to, the project we worked on was key because we actually did a level 3 in 2016 on the outcome of the program of the Kirkpatrick model being used in the organization. So we wanted to see the outcome years later because it hadn't been touched. And it was, I'm going to say amazing. Of course, we were going to see it. The outcome was it was great because you could see growth and just, coming together and not knowing what we're going to do, bringing something that was done in the past and having the opportunity to see growth and the outcomes that were really strong. It was great because we were able to leave something for leadership to move forward with. And that was really exciting about the project that we did together.
Awesome. I'd love first, because I want to kind of ask a little bit more about your findings in the Silver program. Although I have seen the presentation, but for our listeners that did not have that privilege, I want to first know, how did going through Bronze and Silver, and you all went through different times, like how did that influence your all's dynamic?
I can say that, I did mine in 2015. I think Deana did hers in 2017, I think.
I think it was 2019.
2019, and then Jen.
2022, yeah.
2022. So, it's like when you bring three different perspectives. I mean, the same model, but we all focused on key things and coming together. It made us to be, I really think we're a solid team. Period. We're a solid team because we were able to, on the things that because we all individuals are going to focus on something differently, but we were able to come together and really, work through the process. We had a lot of fun. I can say that.
And then that makes me reflect on, we did a webinar February called, Define the Relationship. And it's talking about the team that you need in your, to do evaluation on your learning team. And we talked about, some people are the voice, some people are the hands and they're the doers. Some are more the heart and some are, and I can't remember what the fourth dimension is. I'll eventually commit these to memory. But everyone has their strengths. And to your point, even beyond the strengths of what we like, the way our perspective and our previous experiences or even our current experiences, right? Because y'all are working together, but maybe not on the same things all the time, right? Y'all have your different program areas. So you see things differently and you see the model implemented differently. And so you can bring those experiences, which makes it a much more enriching evaluation experience. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. And I think just to add one more thing that, I took my program in 2019 or 2020 and then started to work on, my plan and then ended up going into another position for program management where I was on the team with Ronnie and then with Genevieve. So that was great that, the three of us came back together because I had previously worked on different things with them. So I think the fact that I tried to start, working that and then come back with the group and then think about using that in a different way and doing the Silver on Kirkpatrick, we were able to really apply it and relate it. And then we had all the history, that Ronnie had, and we just really gelled together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sat in on the newer course with people, and it was, really good to see that. So
amazing.
All kind of shifted around and came back together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, to your point, for using everybody's individual strengths, I think we did such an awesome job with that. I don't think that there was like, well, you should do this, right? Like it wasn't like that. It was very organic because since we had worked together in different capacities already, we already knew each other's strengths. And so I don't even think we really even said like, you do that and you do this. We just kind of moved towards like what we knew were our strengths. And we knew that the other people on our team were going to be fine with that. And there wasn't going to be any arguments about like, well, I want to do that because we had already known, that those are each individual's strengths. So that was really helpful, I think, to have that past history, but then to come together to, because we had to all do a new blended evaluation plan since we had all done our bronze on something completely different.
That's right.
So we really buckled down and just got that done. Like, I was kind of like, we got to get this done. And I kind of like put together a timeline and everybody was like, okay.
So would you say you're like the project manager?
I don't want to say that, but I did hear they were like, okay, be a little more patient.
She's the arranger. She's the arranger.
Yes.
Oh, it's like, I think you all know, I mean, Jenny, you might not know Tiffany, but you all know Tiffany on my team, right? I lovingly call her my handler. Like if Vanessa's going somewhere, she's the one that has to corral her, that she knows, okay, this is your flight. This is when you're doing things. Because I've turned into like, I'm type A sometimes, like in work, but like in trying to do things, I'm like, I'll get there when I get there. I'll figure it out. 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. We'll figure it out. So actually, I do want to continue to touch on this for a moment, including this idea that, you know, you can work on a team together to help evaluate, you know, a program or initiative. I think sometimes we feel like we have to go at things alone, and we feel like we have to be an expert at all of the pieces. And so it's so nice to hear that you all were able to come together, find, you know, your all's place on the team. And it doesn't sound like a traditional college or high school group project where one person does all the work and everyone gets the grade. I know we've all definitely been there. I do want to ask about your project. If you guys can give us a synopsis. I was nervous when I found out that this is what y'all were doing. I'm not going to lie. So for our audience, the team here did an evaluation on, so we had been working with their agency and done a bunch of programs for them, and they wanted to evaluate the effectiveness of bringing in the Kirkpatrick certification. How meta of a evaluation. And I was like, okay, I know we've had impact, but like we talk about in all of our programs, right? There are a lot of variables that as Kirkpatrick partners, I do not control, right? I don't control the system that folks are then having to go implement evaluation in, right? Their barriers, their continual skill set, like ensuring that they are sticking to how we taught things, right? Like I don't control those things. I'm like, there's a lot of variables that could affect these results. And so the team told me about this. I said, okay, we're going to see. I mean, now I feel a lot better. Now I'm seeing it. But can you all share a little bit about, you know, the project builds, you know, who you were interviewing, the different mechanisms that you use to gather the data and some of your findings?
Well, I could start off by just saying that I think this project was near and dear to us because, you know, as Ronnie said before, it had been a big initiative. And then all of a sudden, you know, they'd kind of fallen away from that initiative and we're looking at possibly putting that back in. Mm-hmm. So we also just wanted to see how it had evolved from back in 2017, was it? Or 16, Ronnie?
16.
Yes, 16. So how had it evolved? And we were using it, but how many others were using it, and what could we do to support them in using it? So we talked to previous bronze participants, and we talked to supervisors. We put out surveys, and then we had focus groups. And so that's how we gathered a lot of our data. I'll turn it over to anyone else that wants to speak.
Sure, I can. If Ronnie, unless you want to add anything first.
Well, I want to make sure that we're tracking here. So that's who we gathered data from, and but I just like to go a little back because I think this is important to know and understand that when this was previous done in 2016, we only had 52 people trained, 52. Mm-hmm. And it's something that because we did have an evaluation and analysis section that was focused on analysis and evaluation. And it was key. It was key to the whole learning and development, you know, professionals. So to come forward and do this currently, where we had over 300 people who have been already through the training, and to gather data from those folks, and some of them were there that existed back then. They were supervisors now, back in 2016. it was really interesting just to see the growth, to see how the whole program and people are thriving, because you can tell the passion, you could see the passion, because this just, who wants to waste money and time? Let's talk about the value of things, and just doing this as a whole has been. I think I went off script, but that's okay.
I do it all the time.
I think Ronnie's right. The fact that there were so many, you could see the growth of how many more people they were putting through the program.
Yeah.
Which means that they were seeing added value in it. Mm-hmm. And so then we wanted to see where we're at and how much more we could support.
Mm-hmm. And just to clarify, so back in 2016, what Ronnie was talking about, there was a learning and evaluation, or analysis and evaluation team. We no longer have that team. And all of these people, from that 50 to the almost 300 people that we have trained now in Kirkpatrick, those are people who voluntarily are doing this as like a collateral duty. So it's not something that they even do every day, or that they even are allotted extra time for to do, but they were so interested because it was a voluntary registration. Of course we, tell them what it's about and why and how it could help them, but this is all voluntarily registration for the people in our agency. And so many people were just from word of mouth about like what the impact of it has been, or what they've learned, what their colleagues have learned, and what they've seen. It really has made a difference. But not having that analysis and evaluation team is different now, because again, there's not a dedicated team to only doing that.
I love this. Thank you so much for sharing that. And especially, I didn't know that piece that you were just sharing, that team is no longer there. And so it makes it even more special to hear about these folks that truly see the impact and the reason for that. Okay, so I want to get into one question of myths and misconceptions. I love talking about Mythbusters. What do you think is one myth or misconception about training evaluation that you think others in your space need to let go of?
That it takes too long.
That's too hard.
Right.
Too much time.
Yeah.
That's right. I just evaluated the DoD coaching program in a month. 1 month, and I can tell you the level 4, I can tell you the behavior change does not take that long. That is right.
I think if people had understood, maybe perhaps, I understand mission. We're when you're in a federal space, mission, and well, you got to do this. No, mission. So you're focused, but I wish people could realize the importance of an evaluation to the mission. I wish they could see that. If I could sprinkle some magic dust so that people could see that, that'd be great. Because I think that's the missing piece.
Yep.
I think it takes a long time, and it doesn't.
Yeah. And the other misconception, I think, in our agency is that evaluation should be done last. And really, it should be done. And this is what we've been teaching now, for me, ever since I really got my aha moment and learned about, the importance of it, is that you really should be designing and developing your training with evaluation in mind first, from the get-go, not have it at the end. But a lot of times that's where people are thinking, it's just at the end. So sometimes when things are at the end, you're like, just leave it there, right? Mm-hmm. But we really, as people are designing and developing their trainings, we want them to see that evaluation should touch every single part of that process.
100%.
And I think that's what, when you talk about your aha moment, Genevieve, I think that's kind of what mine was. I was getting a lot of trainings that, we need this training. And I try to, push back and do it. Well, do we really need training, or is it something else? And nope, we're just doing training. So then I started to see, after, went through bronze and silver, okay, this is a way that I can use this evaluation tool to be able to say, So here, after the fact, you wanted me to do the training, but after the fact, here's the information. And did the behaviors change? And no, we don't have a behavior change. So why don't we have a behavior change? Was it because it's not a training issue, or was it because the training didn't hit on the things that we needed it to? Did it not have the support in the drivers? So it was a really great way for me to be able to affect some change in that manner and have people to start thinking about, when we're thinking about training, do we need it? And, doing that evaluation and analysis up front and see really what is the reason for the training and what impact do we want from it? What behavior change do we want?
I love that. It's we've got a new performance designer certification that is our version of instructional design that walks through this thing, right? So that was one of the questions you would get from folks is like, okay, like I know how to do an evaluation plan, but like, how do I do it from the beginning? Like when I get the request. And one of the pieces that I think is so powerful from that process that we train on is when you're doing the evaluation, you're now measuring what are the tools that they're using. Are they going back to the training? Are they going to your checklist that you're providing? What are they actually finding value in? And then over time, you start to build this data pool of, hey, people aren't actually necessarily finding going back to the training is helpful, but doing more of these things are where they're finding the help. So that gives you the quantitative data that some folks need, but then also the stories, right, to be able to convince stakeholders of, why you should maybe think of training a little bit differently or think of learning in a different way. So, Deana, I want to start with you. You started training informally. How did your perspective on success in training shift once you joined the formal training unit and complete your bronze certification?
Yeah, and I think, it kind of goes back to what I was just saying about really understanding that evaluation is more than just how did you think the course went, and really start thinking more about how does it align with strategic initiatives? And is it meeting the needs? What's, behavior change, all of those things. And how does that all go into whether or not the training was successful, and being able to pull that data out? How do you gather that data and push it up through to management?
Amazing. So one of the things that really compelled me about your story was this embedding levels 1 through 3 in your SOJT program. I think that we sometimes focus on 4, but really getting 3 right is really so impactful. And I think a lot of folks, that's really what they want to do. When they say they want to get to level 4, they really want level 3. And that for them, a lot of times is good enough. And they're looking ways now how to do that. What would you say it took to build that kind of structure? And did you have any lessons learned from that experience?
Yeah. So, I think the group of people that we had working on SOJT from the beginning wanted to gather, the 1 and 2 level, and built it in. I think, we found the level 2 was, maybe didn't get as much information because people didn't participate as much. And so we really had to look at that again, shorten it a little bit, because I think the first one was really lengthy. It wasn't automated. Right. And then going up through into level 3, really getting feedback from supervisors, the coaches, and the subject matter experts and coordinators of the training that were really working with the people every day, knowing what they needed to train in. I think one thing that we learned also was that, supervisors were getting a lot of emails because, works on performance tasks. So every time somebody completes a performance task, they would get an email, hey, can you fill out the survey? How do you think they're applying it to the task? And so we ended up saying, okay, we have to go to 3 to 6 months out and say, for all of the performance tasks that they have completed in that period of time, can you please, assess that? And then if there's any specific task, speak to that one, so that we got more information, because they were getting overwhelmed.
Oh, I love that insight. Thank you for that, sharing that.
Yeah.
That's really important. To get that manager support is sometimes to really think about how are they receiving this additional ask, and how can you figure out how to simplify, group it, maximize, what it is that your ask is. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Would you say that what was your manager support like before you started this initiative? And then how did that, by grouping it all together, how did it change?
Yeah, I think in the beginning we saw a lot of pushback. It was a really slow process getting SOJT up and running because people saw it as a lot of work, not only to put these performance tests together with us, but then the evaluation piece of it, and having to, like I said, all those emails.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we work primarily, we get those out 3 to 6 months, and then they evaluate. We're getting better information, but we also are in frequent conversations with the training coordinators and the subject matter experts. Subject matter experts work with us to develop new performance tests, and then we get feedback from them all the time on the ones that were developed and how the training is going.
Mm-hmm.
We work with groups of coaches getting feedback, and all of that kind of goes up through to the level 4. So we end up pushing that up, bringing back all that data and the results of that, and bringing it up to the head of the different directorates. So what that's done is now, over the course, I've been the program manager for 2 years now, and we had 1 directorate that was on board. And now we have 5 directorates that have participated just from being able to share that information.
Mm-hmm.
And they've gotten excited. They've heard good results from the other directorate, and they are all in and starting to help us develop more and more performance tasks and get those evaluations created. And so we work together with them for those initial evaluation criteria.
That's incredible. And thank you for sharing that, because I think we can all relate to the pushback in the beginning and understand it's a slow roll. How did you keep momentum? Because I know that's always a challenge, right? Because it feels like you're constantly hitting a brick wall.
Yeah. We also have a cafe call. So I just kept the information out there about what we were doing, and kept it out there, who is interested in participating. And so we slowly started to get people, and I think a lot of people who had actually gone through Kirkpatrick,
Mm-hmm.
And had gone through some other programs. And so they started saying, hey, yeah, I want to be involved in this. So I do think that was a big help, because people became aware of the importance of this and the importance of evaluation, and because the program for SOJT is really based on performance, like you said before. Right. It is how people do their job. And so it directly affects performance. So we want to make sure that we're helping people to be successful. And so, yeah.
One of the things that was that struck me on what you just said is that these things that we talk about, right? Actually, we talk a lot about it in Performance Designer too, is the need for communications plans and the need for like this marketing behind what it is that you're doing. I think sometimes there is this idea of like, if we build it, they will come. I can tell you from a business perspective, I have built things that no one comes to. So that is not how that runs. In whatever space, whether it's something that you're, for your business or for work, you have to, there's so many things that are grabbing at our attention that we have to do. It is already top of mind that to embed something else and new, it takes like the cafes, it takes finding your champions in your, you found your other past graduates from Kirkpatrick to help build that momentum and that why. And then eventually it actually becomes easier, right? So like, you all are familiar with the Kirkpatrick community that we have. And I have been behind communities for so long. And I tell people when they want to, when customers say they want to create one, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to let you know now. creating a community is really hard in the beginning. And you're going to ask yourself why you're doing this, because you're not going to see a lot of return, because we assume that it's just so organic because we have this preconceived notion from like Facebook and how organic a lot of groups are, right? And very active, and it doesn't feel like it needs a lot of moderation. What they don't see is the beginning work when these groups were created. It does take a moderator to create engagement. It takes a lot of people to realize that's where I'm going to go and turn. And that happens in your online communities. It just takes time. But then once it happens, it's such like this amazing organic growth that really is more impactful than a lot of work that we can be doing. So I want to turn over to Ronnie. So you had experience with the Kirkpatrick model going all the way back to 2001. What made it click for you more recently?
Learning the model. and I say that, so when they didn't tell us it was a Kirkpatrick. I had to go back, when I knew I was going to come on here, I had to reflect back and think. Mm-hmm. And I said, my God, I remember I know it's the Kirkpatrick, but let me go back because I'm what they call in accordance with. I always remember regulations and rules. So I actually went back because I have a copy to the SAT manual that they used to teach us about ADDIE. And I go to the E, and this was created, in the early 2000s, in the 90s. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, it's telling us about evaluation. This is Kirkpatrick, but they didn't tell us it's Kirkpatrick. Mm-hmm. They didn't, but we did do evaluations during, we did the informal and the formal, the summative and the formative. During the classes, because I remember I was the academic chief, active duty, and I had to get all that data. But honestly, and I'm embarrassed to say this, I didn't do anything with that data. I didn't do anything with it.
You ain't the only one.
It's like, I remember saying, okay, what do we do with this? I remember doing what we call airs, and those were done at the end of course. After 3 months, 6 months, I collected all that data, but it sat in a file, and it did. It really did. I'm being as frank as possible. It did. So it's actually going to the class and learning and understanding what the model is, how it's put in place, how it's put in practice, and community. Mm-hmm. And community, because having a community, especially when I joined the organization and we had A&E analysis and evaluation, that was something we talked about all the time. We talked about evaluation, the analysis, evaluation. It was a constant on a daily basis. And going to class and having that community and talking to people about it and trying to sell why we should evaluate. It came together. Unfortunately, it took many years, but I remember during my master's class in George Washington, we learned a Kirkpatrick according to how the professor saw it. Mm-hmm. But it's just being with the organization really put everything together, because when you put something in practice and you're constantly looking at it, you learn something new every day, and it makes things, it gives it clarity.
Yeah.
It gives it, so, and that's how.
And I like what you just said there, right? When you put something into practice and you're actively practicing it, right? It's like, eventually you start to see the changes. It's like losing weight, right? You can't eat a salad, although I try, right? I eat a salad one day and I expect that the next day I've lost my 10 pounds. That's just not how it works. However, over time, like I just joined, I use ClassPass now. So I go to different gyms in the area to get back on my health kick. And at first I'm like, I'm not really seeing results. But then over like the next month, I started seeing, I actually am not, panting so much at the end of class, or, I can hold that pose in yoga a little bit longer. And it took the fact that I would go 5 days a week, 6 days a week, just consistently, even though I wasn't immediately seeing the results, knowing that over time, and then, cut to 2 months later, right? Your clothes are fitting differently and things like that. It just takes time and practice. And there's, as much as like I would love to create a magic pill for learning because I would become a billionaire. But there is just no magic pill. It just takes, all of those reps. Now, in your opening, we've, and you're very familiar with this. We always have these challenges with stakeholder buy-in. It's a big question that we get, in the program. What strategies have you found have worked and what hasn't worked to bring stakeholders along? The one strategy I think is key is that you bring them in from the beginning. You have to bring them in from the beginning. And remember that you're a consultant. So you have to become a consultant. And you have to give them the why. Why is this? I think when we do that, and when we have done that, they become more open. When I say the stakeholders, they become more open and receptive. The one thing that we did do, that I saw that really made a huge impact, because a stakeholder, it can be many people. Mm-hmm. When we had one session where we had the branch chief, the section chief, and then their employees come to the certification. Wow, it's amazing what they're doing today, because they were able to see the process. The branch chief was able to see the process. And once they saw the process, they wanted to run away with it. They were ready. They were ready to just put everything, just put it in practice. And let's make sure that we're working this, what doesn't work? I think the one thing that, as a learning professional, when you especially dealing with evaluation, we really got to speak to the stakeholder in plain language. Mm-hmm. We really do. We just, I'm a New Yorker, and I always say I got to keep it real. I'm sorry, but I have to. I get it.
Yeah, I got to keep it real. Mm-hmm. I'm not. We need this. Mm-hmm. We need this. We have a U.S. code that tells us we have to evaluate, but they look at this as big picture. No, it trickles down. It's a ripple effect. It's just it's communicating and marketing with that stakeholder. We really got to bring him in from the beginning. So. Yeah,
I love that you're talking a lot about language. It's so important. A big thing that we talk about is we have to stop speaking learning, because they're going to speak organization or business or whatever. And when those two go against each other, you lose every time, and Ronnie, you'll appreciate this. So I was saying, in one of the podcasts, I think it'll come out, I don't know when, at some point. I recorded it recently. It's like in Spanish, we can say we're talking the same language, but saying it differently, right? So like bus, right? Wait, how do you say bus?
Wawa.
Okay, right. Because I say it that way too, right? In Spanish, traditionally, it's autobús, right? And so I one day said to my husband, I was like, what do you call? I was like, do you call that a wawa? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's glowing. He had no idea. He's like, that is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I was like, wait, nobody calls it this, right? Or like, this took me a long time to learn. A cot, we call it a pim pam pum. No, nobody else. Right? Because it's like the way like you open it. And so we're talking like the same way with someone else, but we're talking two different words, two different languages, but we're all talking the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes this struggle. And at the end of the day, if your stakeholder never understands the language, or if you're speaking in a way where they feel not as intelligent in the conversation, turn off. They will turn right off. To realize with a lot of our stakeholders, especially when we're talking about like branch chiefs, CEOs, VPs, these generals, there's ego in the room, right? And so we really have to understand how to play a little bit of that game, and so important to speak the language. Now, from your perspective, how do you think that the conversation around training evaluation has evolved in federal agencies since your early days in the Marines?
Oh, it's evolved. It definitely has. I can see the the desire. I see the passion, and I use the word passion because especially when we did our silver, when we had these focus groups, and you saw the folks saying, yes, we do it this time, and in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, and you see that desire. You didn't see that before. You didn't. You haven't before. I mean, I remember 2001. Okay, I'm collecting this data. Okay. Oh, okay. This is good to know.
Check the box.
Yeah. I'm so embarrassed, but it is what it is.
That's reality.
It has changed, and it's great to see that desire. Because I understand that evaluation. It's to discern what the impact is really, looking to see where the efficiency is at. So, I mean, nowadays that I know it's a desire, and it's great. It is really, it's exciting. For me, it's exciting because, we do it every day. We do it in our own lives. Like you stated, with the gym and the eating, and we do it all the time. So why not implement that same type of process that we do on a daily basis to your job, to the training, to the programs. So
absolutely. I love that.
I know I'm stepping in, but
no, go ahead.
I think also that what I've seen is that I think that training and trainers have been able to change that language, like you said, to turn it into that results-driven language. And we've realized that speaking, learning and evaluating learning isn't getting us where we need to be. So we've learned to speak that results speak, right? So what they really want to know is, what's the impact, like Ronnie said, how does that matter to us? And what does it matter for the organization? So how does it change behavior? How does it impact what we do? And how does it maybe streamline and give us better results, So just wanted to add that. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Jen, have you seen, what's the kind of the evolution that you've seen?
Yeah. Well, I haven't been with the Kirkpatrick world for as long as Deana and Ronnie have been, but I do see also this passion. Like, once people realize like what the value or impact of an evaluation can have on their training, people get really excited about it. And now whenever I give my portion on like why evaluation is important when they're doing their designing and their developing and implementation of their trainings, I just see like, oh, like it just kind of clicks. And then they're like, I want to learn more. Like, how can I learn more about it? And so that's when, of course, we then advertise like the courses for Kirkpatrick and how it's being used in our agency and across the different places also, and where they can find out more. And people I know participate in the Kirkpatrick community. So that's really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I love seeing that. And I love that it's helping you provide some more of those aha moments, which I know is so central to your story and what lights you up. And I think honestly in this work, what lights all of us up, right? We love being able to see someone. At the end of the day, evaluation is really, it's helping others, unlock insights, unlock value, unlock time, and how certain programs or initiatives have been able to unlock things in themselves. So like in the coaching program that we're evaluating right now, a lot of the things that we're finding are people are unlocking things personally for themselves. So they had a lot of trouble balancing, work and life and like integrating into teams, and, showing up as a whole person at work. And these things are able to do that. And it gives you the ability, to provide that, then for others. And the only way that that this program can do that, can provide that transformation for for someone is through evaluation, right? We wouldn't know otherwise. So I'd love to hear from you, Jen. You said that in 2022, you had a powerful aha moment. Can you share that aha and what triggered that realization about evaluation and training impact?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact wording that was used when I went through the Kirkpatrick Bronze training, but basically it was like, what's the point of doing all this work to put together a training and delivering it if nothing changes after training? And I was like, what? I really was like, what? Like, and I really had to like sit and like reflect, because at that point I had been in academia. I had been a training and curriculum specialist. I had, taught so many things. And I was like, why did I never even think about that? Right. Sometimes we never with Ronnie, at least they were collecting data. Like sometimes we would just give trainings and we never even, okay, like that's it. The class is done. And it was like, you would hear or get feedback like, oh, I really enjoyed the class. But like, I never, like for some of the trainings that I had provided, if an evaluation wasn't already part of like that organization's package for their training, I would just deliver my training and that was it. It was like, oh, and then they would say like, oh yeah, they loved it. We want you to come back and give this training again. But I never even thought about like the impact of the training and like, how does it affect people's behavior after? Like, did anything change? And I think I was just like awestruck that like I never even thought of that. Like again, like Ronnie, like I feel really embarrassed, like having been in the learning community for so long and thinking that I was a professional, and then like not even ever thinking about like, well, how do they apply what I just gave them training on? Like if there was never any follow-up.
Oh, 100. So, I think I will safely say, I know I definitely have done that and been there. And I think that we all have. And I think that it still happens all the time. I'll be surprised sometimes, I guess maybe because of like the way things are written, but how many high level folks in learning was like, I had no idea what the Kirkpatrick model was. And I'm like, how did you get so far in your career without hearing at least somewhere the Kirkpatrick model? But they know levels for some reason, but not the model, I guess. So you're a program manager now. How has your approach to training changed since embracing the Kirkpatrick model? Were there workflow differences? Are your conversations different? Where's the differences?
Yeah, for sure. I mentioned earlier that like when I'm giving training now, I always throw in the piece of like, why did you do all this hard work if like you don't even know how your training is impacting or applying after when people leave your training? And like, I just kind of like mic drop it at that point sometimes.
Oh, I love
and
that.
Just like people's eyes are just like, what? Like it was the same impact that it had on me for a lot of people. They're like, yeah, like I did put so much work, because a lot of us like in our agency and just, I think learning professionals in general, we're so passionate about what we do, right? Like we love to give training, we love to facilitate, but like, and we put so much like effort and time and blood, sweat, tears, into our work. And for you to like do that, but then not know the impact of it later, or like, did people's behavior actually change? Like, what is the point? Like, it's almost like it gives you purpose and justification for like why you're giving training if you're able to then say, well, yeah, this is what happened after people took my training.
Yeah.
So I have like, I guess, changed or just always add that whenever I'm training about like best practices or like what is the purpose of training, like, and how to align it with your strategic goals of like your agency, your office, whatever. Like, how does that tie in? Because at the end of the day, like if you're giving training and somebody asks like, well, what was the point of your training? If you can't say like how it impacted or like what behaviors you saw change, like it's kind of like, okay, well, cross that off then. We don't need it because you're not able to articulate like how you've changed or what impact you've made on your office or agency or just people's behavior in general.
Yep. Giving that ability to defend the work that you're doing and the time, right? Taking people out of their job is taking them, away from something else. And so being able to justify that is so crucially important. And I think, not we don't really talk about it enough. Sometimes you don't want to say like the real tough things of like, if you don't do this, eventually you can only go so long where they don't find out, right? Eventually it during hard times, it's what gets cut, right? Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way that it goes. And having a long history of it not happening doesn't mean that it never will. And also, it's also helpful for you. Like, I love doing things, but I love doing things when I know that they're going to have impact or there's meaning behind it. Doing things for the sake of doing things also doesn't feel really good, at least for me. Now, you're integrating this with your teams and you're talking to folks about it. What kind of feedback have you received from them since making evaluation more central to your approach?
Definitely a lot more questions about like how, if they have not taken a Kirkpatrick course, definitely questions about like, how do I learn more? How do I get connected with that training or are there books, etc. So that kind of feedback happens all the time. And also, I've been getting a lot of like requests for consultations. Like, can you look at our evaluations and let us know, like, is this going to affect behavior? Like, how do I ask those questions so that I get those answers? And the thing that I think is another myth buster, right, is like, it doesn't have to be a survey.
No.
Right. We got so much more honest, open feedback when we just talked to people.
Thank you.
Yep.
And like those focus groups were amazing that we did for our program initiative because we just had conversations. And, Ronnie and Deana and I like have built relationships across the agency where people felt comfortable to tell us, like, just tell us how it was. And those were just eye-opening conversations to have. And so that's another thing that I think that people have been giving us feedback about is that, like we've been doing more focus groups or we've been interviewing people and they're like, wow, we got some really interesting information or like we never thought of this or whatever. And because, people have survey fatigue nowadays, right? Like we see a survey for every single thing. And people like are just like, whatever. Either they're not going to do it or they're just going to check whatever box and they're not even going to fill out that part that says, what else do you have to share? Because they're like, I'm so sick of these.
Or it feels like extra work.
Yes. But when you take the time to talk to them, even like, just a few minutes, you just get so much more honest, open information that can really impact, the whatever you're doing.
Yeah. I would imagine too that you all have to battle survey fatigue from the lens of, having to take what do they call it? The Federal Experience Viewpoint Survey or FEVS. Like, from what I hear, not everyone's favorite survey to have to take every year. And so it feels like, that helps to give a bad brand to surveys, right? And, a lot of people take really terrible surveys and it feels like a lot of time. Also, a lot of times you don't know what happens with any of that data, right? Like I just spent time giving you my opinion, but like, okay, so what now? And also I know for me personally, sometimes if you're going to ask me to write out my feedback, like I'm not as much of a writer, but if you get me in an interview or just a quick conversation in a hallway, I am much more apt to share with you because I can just talk it out. So if there's a way that I can just like voice note, in those open feedbacks, you'd get a lot richer of data from me. I can 100% share that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people share that opinion as well. Like we see it all the time and we're like, oh, why, we didn't see this in the surveys, but when you talk to people, it's just, I think people want to talk about it. They don't necessarily know how to put it into words. But when you start talking to them about it, I think that's when all of the great information and tidbits come out. The other feedback I'm getting is like, people are doing observations or like desk side interviews or whatever. And I think that's really awesome to hear, because people are now saying like, show me what you learned, and how are you using it now. And I think that's really great to hear. It's so exciting whenever I hear people tell me after, like, oh, like this is what we've tried now, because we weren't getting any surveys back. And
that's such
now
a great
we're
point.
able to use it.
Observation. I'm glad that you mentioned it, because it's a really underutilized, I think, data collection tool, because it feels like a lot of time to have to do, right? And you're like adding something to someone's plate. But I'm sure that in observations, there are things that we learn, right, based on how they are using it. Maybe they found a shortcut, or whatever it is, a way to enhance even the learning even more. Or they'll sit here and say, you taught it to me like this, but this is actually like a little bit better, or a little bit easier. And it gives you more data to then improve your program as well, not just necessarily check on behavior. So I think I'm glad that you mentioned it, because we don't give observation enough love.
And that's one of the things that I meant to talk about when you asked me about SOJT, is that is a crucial piece of the SOJT program, is an observation, performance observation checklist. And it's really the coach going in now and observing how much they've learned from what they've taught them. And then the supervisor going in and reviewing and signing off and understanding where they're at in their performance. So it's a key piece of that as well. And one other thing I wanted to talk about, I know I'm cutting over into Genevieve's, but I think one of the things that I've seen people have a hard time with is, how do you bolster the confidence of people and reward? And so some of the things that we've talked about before was like certificates. Everybody likes a certificate. But I know in previous to this position, I was working on a unstructured coaching program. And one of the things that we did as part of kind of that advertising for it, right, was having coaches come on and record. We asked specific coaches that we knew were really successful, come on and record a commercial, kind of, so to speak, where they talked about the program and what they liked and didn't like. And then we had open question and answer sessions where people could come on and ask a coach what they liked about the program. And at the time, we had upper management that was on board, really liked that. And so then when I came into the SOJT program, they actually happened to be one of the executive sponsors for one of the directorates. So I already had buy-in there for the Structured on the Job program. And that was really helpful.
We did something similar at KP, like an open house, because I was like, I bet you that people who are very curious about the program just like have never seen it and are just wondering like what's inside. And so I like that you use that, right? Gives people more of that like ability to kind of like Oz, peek behind the curtain. And I know that we get this a lot in the program when we talk about required drivers, and including things like recognition. Everyone always assumes, well, I don't have the money to do that. And it's like, I remember Jordan and I were on a Training Mag Network webinar last October, and we started talking about required drivers. We talked about recognition, and we started doing this myth busting about, doesn't have to cost, really. Like, it'd be great if you could give something of tangible value to someone, but it doesn't also have to. And then the chat started blowing up with people that say, we just do these shout outs, we provide these certificates, or we give these things that really don't cost anything. And people love it. And they're clamoring for it to be able to earn, performance behaviors properly, to earn that reward. It's really tapping into people's, like recognition, like just truly a simple shout out, on Teams or whatever you use, is sometimes often enough to get someone motivated to continue, but also build up the FOMO for the others to want to perform those behaviors, because they're going to want that shout out, right? They want that certificate. They want, maybe that a little luncheon, extra lunch and learn that you can only exclusively get, or whatever it might be. So I love that you mentioned the recognition. So
for sure that gets some feedback when we do that. Like when we do shout outs in our cafe or just in our channels, like we'll say like, oh, congratulate this person because now they got their bronze or they got their silver. And then sometimes for people who like had thought about it in the past, now they're like, oh, I meant to ask you, how do I do that? Or how do I learn more about Kirkpatrick? And I'm like, oh, okay, like you've been sitting there for a few years, but just because now we recognize somebody. So it is a motivator for some people.
Absolutely. Now, if each of you could give one piece of advice to someone just starting out on their evaluation journey, what would it be?
I would say, think outside the box. Because oftentimes they go in and you're in the box, and that I think that gives you that help, that you struggle with that. So if you come in and you think outside the box, the possibilities are greater.
I think I would say, create and lean on your community of practice so that you have those people to bounce ideas off of, so that it broadens your perspective. And again, it helps you, like Ronnie said, think outside the box, because now you have a whole bunch of people saying, oh, this worked for us, or, and it also helps them to really dive in and understand and ask questions if you don't understand.
And I would say, like, just do it, like, just jump in, like, because you will have the support, like, especially like if you have that community of practice and the support and people that you work with that have already had the experience or know more about it, like just do it. And you can evaluate your own evaluation journey, like as you're going along. So it's okay to like not have it all the first time you do it, right? Like not have all the knowledge, and then you just learn from that.
Yeah, just keep trying. So before we close out, what's next for each of you on your training and evaluation journey? Do you have any future goals or initiatives that you're excited about or working towards?
So I took an early retirement, and I'm going with the flow and my consulting, starting my reworking my consulting company, MVS Solutions, and see what happens. Go with the flow and network. And I'm working on something right now because I'm very passionate about coaching and leadership development. Of course, with evaluation. Not only do you need to evaluate your programs, but you need to evaluate your people.
That's right.
I'm toying with that. So, sky's the limit for me. So for me, I'm reinventing myself. And wherever, wherever I'm led, that's where I'm going. So I'm excited. So
that's amazing. I'm excited for you. And first stop at ATD next week. We shall see each other there.
We will. Yes, we will.
I'm moving forward with SOJT. We have a couple more positions that we are creating performance tasks for. So right now we're in the analysis stage, just kind of figuring out what performance tasks need to be developed and what don't need to be training, right? So that initial piece of it. And then evaluating as we go. Did we hit the mark? Did we not hit the mark? What needs to be adjusted?
Incredible.
And I'm continuing my education journey. So I've been finding that for a lot of the assignments, I'm able to pull in Kirkpatrick and just talk about my experience with it for reflections. And I'm getting my doctorate in educational psychology. So I'm able to pull in all of the information that I've learned, and I'm continuously learning. And I'm also trying to get these ladies to present something with me at a conference in the future, maybe even Kirkpatrick Summit, possibly.
Not saying that there is a conference I can help you out with, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. So those are all in the talks. And also I've had requests from other places to kind of give them more information about like evaluation. So I'm continuing to spread the word out there about how important it is.
Amazing. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here and for being our latest Golden Girls. We are so excited to have to present you all with those gold certificates, and you guys get pins. I'm not going to promise anything because the mail stinks, but we might try to get the pin in so that I can give it to you, Ronnie, when I see you next week. But otherwise, you will get your pins and your certificates, and I think Tiffany puts confetti in there, which I get very excited about. Also, why are there not more businesses that have boxes with like confetti? I had to ship something to a friend all the way from the UK. I'm like, there's a business we need here. Imagine gifting someone with all this confetti that comes out. Messy, but it's great. So I appreciate you all for spreading the word and helping to champion Kirkpatrick. You all are amazing, and we will talk to you all soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.